I wanted to take a minute to say happy holidays to our Abundant Beans family, and thank you for subscribing and listening. Also, please share and have an abundant holiday. I'm Jamie O'Kane, CPA, Small Business Advanced Tax Planning and Compliance Extraordinaire, and this is the Abundant Beans Podcast, the podcast that takes my love for learning what makes people tick while digging into the good, bad, and ugly of small business ownership. We strive to give you the insight that only those in the trenches of being and working with entrepreneurs can provide. I'm learning every day, about
what do you do when you have a question, like a tax
strategy
question?
There's a lot of people out there that I rely on that are a lot smarter than me to break this stuff down, because I don't understand tax code. I don't understand law. Like, I'll go find those people who've broken it down in a way that's understandable for me, or I'll go find some CPE, or I'll go read about it. I'll go read articles, or I'll go read, different things. Or I'll go to the code, and then I'll go, find other sources to say, oh, well, we apply this or that or this other thing to this situation. I also have a bunch of groups of people that I really, really trust. So if I need help with something or whatever, I'm going to them for that help, generally. So I think it's really about knowing you don't know everything. And knowing who to go to when you don't know everything.
Today my biggest pet peeve are, I would say, people. So, there's that phrase, fake it till you make it, right? I think there's a difference between faking it till you make it and misrepresenting yourself until you make it.
I like that.
I would say misrepresentation until you make it is not the way to go. Faking until you make it, probably the way to go.
Yeah, I think those are totally different things.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah, no names or whatever, but had an appointment this morning, and we're doing this podcast to help entrepreneurs and small business owners and people get their stuff up and running.
This is what we love to do.
Well, love to do it, and ran into a new real estate broker kind of 2 days into the industry, very excited to kind of go.
Love a little baby real estate broker.
And it's so exciting. The energy is just incredible and just totally clueless. And, not that I'm the be all end all of Denver real estate, but I've been doing this a little bit. And she just misrepresented herself in such a bad way.
Yeah.
It was just like, wow, you're going to need some help.
Daily pet peeve. Yeah. It's hard, and as we go into, for our firm, as we go into a new niche,
right.
People ask us all the time, how many veterinary practices do you have? I'm like, full disclosure, I have 3.
Yeah.
And it's great, and I'm loving it, and I'm happy I picked this niche, but I'm not going to pretend like I know more than I do, but I'm going to figure it out.
And what's wrong with being the first, right?
Everybody starts somewhere.
Start somewhere. Oh, by the way, here are my references.
But I've been working with businesses for the last 18, almost 2 decades.
You know what you're doing.
I do.
Yeah.
So new niche. Well, I would say you kind of inspired me to niche down.
Did I do that?
You did with your veterinarians.
Yes.
So it kind of made me think, what is something that I'm really passionate about and something I know? And then instead of casting my net so wide, let's start narrowing it down so then I can focus on really helping an industry that I'm passionate about and love. So fitness, it's my entire life.
So what are some of the biggest obstacles and issues in prescribing cannabis for animals?
Yeah, well, that's kind of a loaded question.
So the big question.
So let's actually do a little bit of background for that one first. So
definitely.
Prescription is actually a word that we have to do some pretty semantic care around. And so the reason for that is cannabis as a whole that has 2 specific subtypes, so hemp and marijuana. So marijuana is still a Schedule 1 substance per the DEA. So I have a DEA license. Most veterinarians do. So it means that I can't prescribe cannabis because it's on a Schedule 1 list, and I can prescribe anything that's 2 through 5.
Oh, okay.
So just kind of knowing what that word prescribe means, it entails that it's on a specific list somewhere that I can give out to a patient. And then hemp side is not a controlled substance anymore, and so you actually can't prescribe something that's not on the DEA list, and so you don't prescribe hemp because it's not on a list,
So we just
and you can't prescribe.
Can we suggest?
Yes.
Okay.
Suggest, advice, guidance, education, all those. We just don't use the word prescribe.
All right, I'm going to
mark that one off.
I did.
The other one that's really tricky is recommend.
Mhm.
In states like Colorado that have medical laws,
Mhm.
they've specifically written into policy that a physician can get around that same prescription sort of shenanigans by saying, I can write you a recommendation. So if I was your physician, I could write you, I think it's a good idea for you to have cannabis. You take that to the state. They give you a cannabis card. You take it to the dispensary. But that wasn't written to policy for veterinarians, so I can't make a recommendation either. So those two words are my own.
So that's one of the dichotomies we see a lot is that, you know, a lot of the laws are applied to human.
Yeah, all
to
cannabis
human
laws are written for
medicine,
humans.
But then veterinarians you know, we want to, you know.
We're trying pretty hard to get just everyone to think of mammalian physiology or practitioners versus physicians and veterinarians. Prescribers is another good term. So it's just kind of what your mindset is.
Because a lot of the applications are similar. Right?
Yeah, we're finding that it is mammalian, that the physiology is the same.
And the human medical field learns a lot from the veterinary field.
Absolutely. Every study that's done has a animal safety trial before it. So we actually have a lot of information. It's mostly in rats and mice and lab animals, but we can extrapolate really, really well. And we are starting to have some studies in animals, but it's mostly humans that are doing the research for us.
I think most importantly is, you know, what are the biggest opportunities business owners are missing online?
I really think that if you are not putting yourself really out there, you are missing a huge opportunity to connect with people. And I think we want that more now than ever before. The more the brand founder has a story and that story's out there, the more human a brand is, the more we want to do business with them. And that doesn't mean that you have to show every aspect of your life online. It simply means that you need to show up as a human being interacting with other real human beings. You know, like these are real human beings. They're not data points.
Right.
And I think treating people like real human beings and crafting an experience for them as human beings is essential. And I think if you're trying to do something different than that, you are missing a real opportunity to build relationships, not just like get transactions from people, but actually to build long-lasting relationships where people will always drive back to you, no matter whether it's, you know, you've got a brick and mortar store or you're online for a period of time or whatever. When they form that relationship with the company they love, they will come back over and over again and they will refer you to like to beyond, really. So
yeah, it's interesting. We just did a whole new website for our business. We put the website and the podcast and the firm together, and they were not together before. And trying to create an accounting firm website that doesn't look like an accounting firm website was, well, the bar's low. So let's start there.
It is with accounting firms.
But there's a lot of default, right? So there's a lot of default to, you know, talking about taxes, or there's a lot of default to doing, you know, in-person video instead of like on our website, we have an animated video. And they were like, but you're an accounting firm, we should do, you know, in person. And I'm like, no, I want to do whatever is opposite of what's expected, right? For a purpose. But the big thing being, we're not your normal accounting firm. Therefore, I don't want to look like a normal accounting firm. But it's still hard to like, how do you help people be more, it's really about being authentic, right? And being okay with being authentic.
My first job, so this is really interesting. My first job was, I was a structural engineer. So I went to college and did structural engineering, was top of my school and got a really good job in that industry. And then my buddy who I lived with at university was earning 4 times as much money as I was in an investment bank. And he had 10% of my brain power. So I went to see him one weekend in London, and we were out in a bar having a beer and his boss was there. So his boss pitched me. He's like, dude, come work for me. I'll quadruple your salary. So I did. I quit my engineering job and I went into the deep, dark world of investment banking. This is back in 1992 in London. And I went to work for Bank of America, which is one of the oldest investment banks in the world. And that started my career as a deal maker. So I worked in the investment banking world for a number of years. Ended up in corporate M&A, so I was buying businesses for HP, the big IT company. And then I quit in 2008. I almost missed the birth of my son. So I quit. I walked away from $1 million in options and bonuses and became an entrepreneur, started buying and selling my own businesses. And I still do that today. I own a private equity fund. We own a ton of small businesses all over the world. But my real passion is I coach 5,500 entrepreneurs and small business owners all over the world how to buy businesses without using their own money. That's my skill set.
Exactly. And so the business environment has changed dramatically, yet the way that we design our organizations has stayed relatively the same for the last 150 plus years. Right? And so there's a vanguard group of organizations that are considering this and that are trying to organize their businesses and their groups of people that are coming together in the pursuit of a common passion, common purpose. They're trying to organize them in a different way. And so, you know, let's take it back to my fourth year of veterinary school. It was being trained as a doctor, right? To use the data, to use science to help you figure out problems. And you're trained to also look for the root cause, the root problem of a healthcare issue. Don't just treat the symptoms. You want to be a good doctor, treat the root cause. Right. And so when I looked around at what I was experiencing at school, I looked at it like a symptom, right? This poor well-being in the workplace was a symptom. And so what's the cause? What's the root cause? And as I kept peeling the layers of the onion back, it came down to this. It came down to this way that we design our organizations and the way we lead them and the way that we engage people on the front lines, the employees, those who are closest to the customer. Do you want them to just show up and do the work, punch the clock, or do you want them to actually engage in the process of developing a business and solving problems?
To use their brains.
Their brain, right.
Do you find, and I think I talk about this all the time, but I find that if you ask people to make a 10-year goal, it's tiny, right? So like people they can't cast vision to 10 years. That's big enough.
Yeah, I agree.
But if you ask them to make a 1-year goal, it's going to be way too big to be available.
I agree.
Yeah. So I try to, we always go for that 10-year goal, and then we back into the 1 year.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, when I challenge people with that 10, 15, 20-year goal, they really struggle with that.
We do.
And you're right. You know, worked with a couple of companies recently, and they're almost achieving their 10-year goal in 2.5 years. Just because they didn't think big enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in the middle of a pandemic, I decided to start a cybersecurity and data protection company. Although it was an idea I'd been toying with for a while, and I was like talking with the other company about, but it wasn't like the right fit. And I think like ownership wasn't really into it, and it never really went anywhere. And then it was like, then when I no longer had my job there, it was like, well, and then I had some backing from people in the industry that were like, I think you should roll with this. And yeah, so we went with it, and things have been going well. I mean, it's definitely something the veterinary industry needs as a whole. I mean, it's pretty bad, especially as we've gotten into doing a lot more cybersecurity audits. So kind of most hospitals are like, yeah, my IT guy takes care of it. And having been on the other side of the aisle, like in the IT thing, I'm like, no, we had terrible cybersecurity practices. And then then you go in and you audit these hospitals, and then it's hard because like you understand the IT guy, his excuses, but you're like, dude, like I get it. Like I know why you're doing it this way, just not the right way to do it. And that's why we're here. And there's this weird dance there, but yeah, just trying to help practices navigate this space. And and I think a lot of it also comes down to is a lot of hospitals don't want to have like a really expensive, fully what we call in the technology world an MSP, where they're paying, upwards of $2,000 to $5,000 a month or whatever for IT. So it's like, what I had found is if you focus on the cybersecurity and data protection piece first, that shores up a lot of your gaps that then result in like needing like a full-time IT guy to kind of constantly be fixing things and resolving problems. So if you kind of shore a lot of that stuff up, then you can kind of get it to a point where it will kind of roll, like as long as you kind of then stay up, think about it a few times a year and just kind of stay on top of it. You can just manage your costs a little bit better. So yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Taking the time to just sit down and like write what needs to, like what goals I need to achieve every day has
Yeah.
significantly changed what gets done around here. And how I feel at the end of the day about what happened. Because it's so easy to just hop into the inbox and deal with all the little stuff that really doesn't need an immediate reply or anything like that. Like I could spend all day in my inbox getting, client needs this, client has a question about that, staff needs this, blah, blah, blah. But if I sit down and intentionally say, this is what needs to happen today. We use the whole firm. We use a program called Gears that my coach teaches. So it's your goals, your events for the day, your actions, when you're going to rest, or when you're done, and then how you're going to take care of yourself that day. And it's just GEE, Gears all the way down. I just stick it right in my planner. The whole team has the same planner.
That's awesome.
And we all, because it's 5 spaces in each day, it works perfectly. And I know if I have a ton of events, I'm not going to really get any large projects done. But I've learned that by sitting down and doing this every day, or every work day. And it's been a game changer. Thank you so much for listening or watching. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, or wherever you prefer to listen. If you learned something and found some useful information to apply to your business today, please consider giving us a thumbs up and a review. Until next week, be abundant.